Fantastic. Well, I'm very excited today to be joined by Asma Khan. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what she's doing, has been doing with her team as well. I know you're probably, many of you, already familiar with Asma, but I wanted just to briefly introduce her, explain how she started the Darjeeling Express, has been also on Chef's Table, and I discovered has also a couple of years ago been called, officially named the coolest person in food and drink by Business Insider, which I think is a fantastic accolade. So I don't know quite how you achieved that, Asma, but well worthy title, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure this is going to be a fantastic session, and I'd like to just start by asking Asma a little bit about how she got started with the supper club, and that's particularly interesting in light of what we were discussing yesterday at the options for opening, that came up as, supper clubs were a really good way of starting. So, excuse me. So would be great to hear, Asma, how you got started and what it was like with the supper club.
It's interesting that the supper clubs today is something that a word that people would recognize. In 2012, it was still called underground restaurants. It was still very hush hush and very secret, and people would talk about it in almost like it was their own personal, secret, that they knew this person who would cook at home. It wasn't something that people knew a lot about. But in 2012, people didn't do pop-ups and residencies, restaurants are still very much empires, castles where, they drew the drawbridge and no one would come in. And the idea of having strangers around your table was not that popular. Now it is. Now, when I look back, I think that the 2012, when I started doing supper clubs in my house, it was the best way to have started. I started from my comfort zone. I had minimum expenses. People had committed to come. Very significantly, they told me what their allergies were, whether they were vegetarian or not, what they ate and what they didn't eat. And these are really important things because I, was a home cook. For us, your kid doesn't like eating carrots, too bad, how sad, you make the kid eat carrots. So, that's the kind of attitude you can't grow up with, you're not going to take nonsense from people. But, when people have allergies and intolerances, it's a very serious thing. But, that transition from just being a home cook and some people not liking something to an allergy and something much more serious, I learned very quickly in a supper club. So it was a great way to start. It was a great way to, introduce a lot of people to my cuisine. It was very nerve-wracking. In 2012, when you thought about Indian food, it was really chicken tikka masala and balti. Balti, which means bucket. In my culture, it's, I was very anxious that people will come and say, where's my chicken tikka masala? And where's my vindaloo? A lot of made up dishes, made up, names, Madras, whatever. It didn't make sense to me. I was worried that people would come in and say, oh, what is this food? But then, by then, already it was cheap to travel. There was the internet. People had been to those parts of the world, had eaten this kind of food. And supper clubs were great because people then came to these, talked about their travel, made friends with people around them. And there was this huge buzz, like excitement. So, it kind of fed off that as well. So it wasn't just the food. People were talking about their lives and their failures and, backpacking in Kathmandu and, their terrible night in Delhi where they got locked out of their rooms. So it became this kind of almost London, just was in my house. And, London is a city of migrants and everybody sat down. People had traveled, people had stories to say, they talked about food. So supper clubs were a great way to start because it was always about storytelling for me. And here, the customers had stories to tell each other. So it became, people felt free. In a restaurant, you wouldn't sit down and talk to a stranger, but here you were sitting next to a stranger and sharing the food with them. So, they would discuss things, and it was great friendships I've seen. Even marriages have come up where eventually I hosted the wedding of two people. I sat next to each other. I thought, this is interesting. They might like each other. So this has happened more than a couple. So quite a few people have made lifelong friendships.
That's an incredible starting point. It's so nice to be able to make that connection for people, and I think it brings home, how much restaurants and food just does for communities. Um, I, I wanted to ask you, you started without any training yourself, a professional training in cooking. How did you find the transition from being a home cook through to being a professional cook and selling your services as a chef?
The transition for me was very painful from being a supper club chef, which
Mm,
is very similar to being a home chef.
okay.
We all do weddings and big parties, so it was quite, and in my own house. So it was sold, basically family style serving. You weren't doing plated service. You didn't have table numbers. Very, very different. It was a shock when I went to the pub and, I had that transition. I think it's very difficult to jump from being a supper club home chef into a restaurant unless you have some idea, because there's a very different tradition of service. So you either need to get on a very good team who will run the service for you. If you're planning to do it yourself and set up the whole service team yourself, it is not easy. I had a lot of help. The manager of the pub at the Fuller's pub where I was there helped me a lot and taught me how to run service. It is not easy. It's not easy because this idea that people come at different times, supper club, and even in your own home party, when you have 25 guests over Christmas, everybody would eat at the same time. The really difficult thing in a restaurant, which is a real challenge, is people are all eating at different times.
Mm,
And you've got to be able to serve them, make sure it's the right item going to the right table, get that kind of bit right, not serve too quickly, not serve too slowly. Getting that done is quite difficult. It took us a long time. We got a lot of, angry customers who were not impressed by the poor quality of service. But then once they ate the food, they were all calm. So they never got around to complaining a huge amount. Once the food eventually reached there, it was not a spectacular success in the beginning. I have to say this. So please, for those who are trying this journey, don't let this knock you back, because there are nights when it was really chaotic and it was quite difficult and not so easy. Things did go wrong. It's not easy. You really need to find people who have experience, who can help you, bring them on board, take advice from people, be open-minded, listen to advice, because that is the thing that I did. I listened to advice, I listened to people, I watched videos, I listened to tutorials, and I learned.
yeah, I think sounds like the service aspect of it and the timing, getting that timing right, is something that you kind of have to learn. I know, for myself, hosting dinner parties, it's always very disruptive if someone arrives late.
Yeah.
So yes, the timing element is key. Um, One of the things I've been so impressed about with Darjeeling Express is around the kind of sense of home, that despite transitioning to a professional environment and a professional restaurant, you've really managed to create a sense of home. I know that's something that your customers really value. It brings back lots of nostalgia for them. Do you think that your team kind of feels that same sense of home, and how have you created that as an environment?
The thing is that the starting point for all of us was that we had left home.
Mm,
For us, the restaurant became our oasis. It became our refuge. It became our way to create the aromas and the flavors of home. We served guests as if they were our own relatives. This kind of ethos of this old Eastern idea of, the guest being an incarnation of God, and you serve them with that respect. Yes, they would pay a bill at the end, but for us, it was not anything different. And for all of us who were cooking, home cooks, we always cooked behind the walls. We were never valued. We were uncelebrated. We were never thanked. And heaven forbid would anyone pay us. This is the culture that we all came from. Otherwise, just look at this. In every South Asian kitchen you go to, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, it is a woman cooking. In every restaurant you go to, in the East and in the West, it is a man cooking. The idea that we are not professional, the idea that we are not fit to serve in a restaurant, to be paid for our labor, to be thanked, to be honored, is alien in our culture. I was going to shatter that.
Mm.
So, but I was not going to shatter that by doing a pseudo professional, Michelin star glitzy service. Because for me, it was the whole ethos was, you've come to my home, I'm going to serve you as you eat in my house. Value me for what I am. And I am the face of every woman who cooks at home. And even few decades ago, your mom and your grandmom, and in every culture, you have this almost, you take it for granted. The fact that women's food were taken for granted. The cooking of your mother and your grandmother was taken for granted. There was no value given to it. And now, I see the change, over the pandemic, people being nostalgic and talking about the thing. But I already knew this from before. In the house, we have a saying in India where they say that, you know, the value of a chicken dish in your house is as, it's no value. It's as if it is like a lentil dish. For us, lentil dishes are quite, standard, of no value. This is a saying. There are lots of other even worse sayings, which I will never say, repeat them. But the idea that, even a chicken or something very exotic or elaborate made by a woman in the house is not as grand as your kali dal, which has been made in some factory and, cooked industrial size. Why have we reached that stage where a black dal, mass produced somewhere is valued so much and the labor of my hands has no value? So driven by this, it wasn't that I wanted the ethos of the restaurant to be like home. I don't know any other way to do it. I needed to walk in and own that space. I wanted people to feel, put your burden down, eat as if you've gone home. You don't need to come from my culture. I want you to understand. I want you to remember the women in your life who fed you like this. I want you to get up and remember what it was like to be fed where the food was cooked with love and patience. I am not on a glory trip. I don't want Michelin stars. I don't want fame. I mean, yes, I know it's easy to say this. I was on Netflix and I've ended up becoming famous. But this was not why I did it. This was not why I did it. And my story doesn't change because, more people know me and I'm on television and I'm in the media. There is a fire inside me because I know that every day I live that ends, I live one day less. I have one day less in which to get this message out. Do not disrespect our women. For centuries, we have been disrespected. Starting off from the women from our graves, I speak for them. For those who no longer can speak, for those who no longer can stand in the room and hear the applause and see the bills at the end of it, I cook for them. So it is something far more than just about recreating the atmosphere of home. I am trying to get back the respect that was not given to us for years and years. And I want to see in my lifetime this changing where women are respected in hospitality, in the kitchen. Women become powerful, powerful forces in hospitality.
Yeah, that's a dream I hope comes true very, very soon. What do you think are the barriers, Asma, to more women entering hospitality at the moment, and how have you looked to overcome that by hiring your all-female team?
The restriction on why women don't progress in hospitality is prejudice. There's a gender bias. There's no other way to call it. It is self-selection. Invariably in a restaurant, the powerful person is a male chef, invariably white. And women there's a box ticking, they just tick a box. You have women in as pastry chefs because, they're in the cold kitchen, they're very artistic and, very careful. You will have women in at different levels, but not in a position of power. Otherwise, how can you explain the misogyny and bullying that is happening in restaurants for a long period of time? I've said this before. If someone touched a woman without consent outside the kitchen, that person would be in jail. That male chef would be in jail. They'll have a criminal record. Somehow in restaurants, the violence and anger and bullying, abuse, racism that happens in kitchens is excused as being a place of great pressure. And women either suck it up or they leave. There's a lot of women you will find, at the entry level, at the middle level. At the very top, very few in positions of power because they're crushed. They have, they decide they want to be mothers, they decide they want to do something else, they decide they want to have a life. How is it that this particular profession is so hostile to us? This 16-hour shift, you're not bloody in Mortal Kombat. You're not playing some kind of crazy game of endurance. It's not brain surgery. You can have 8-hour shifts. You can have 6-hour shifts. I do that. I have mothers and grandmothers. Some go off and pick up their kids at 3 o'clock. Some come after they pick up their kids at 3 o'clock. They're peeling potatoes. They're cooking something. No one is going to die on an operating table because you've taken your hands off it. This is not that. But the rhetoric and the narrative that has been allowed in hospitality is a male narrative. And this excludes us. We need to change the narrative. We need to say, you don't need to never see sunlight ever in your life. You come in the morning, you leave at night, you get hungover and you come back to work. It's seen as it's a macho game where suddenly you're so powerful, you're going to have an 8. You're not going into some crazy game. This is just a job. And any kitchen where so much toxic hatred, bullying happens, I don't even know how that food is beautiful. I don't want to eat that food. I don't want to know. You may be praised by the greatest chefs and get all the stars and be this grand place. I want to know how your kitchen porter is treated. I want to know how your very young intern who's come in, a young girl, this is her first job. How is she be treated? I want to know those questions. I don't want to know whether you have a Michelin star. I don't want to know what your ranking is. I don't want to know how posh your chef is and where he's been or she's been. Very rare that she. And the other problem is that the few women who have made it, this I know is very painful, but I need to say it. The few women who have Michelin stars and have become, at the very top of their game, close ranks with the male chefs. They have not spoken up. Please, everybody think of which female chef called out racism, called out bullying. The last 5 articles that have been written on bullying in the kitchens has been written by me in all the newspapers. Not a single prominent female chef spoke up when a very prominent male chef said he didn't want pregnant women around in his kitchen. This is why he doesn't hire kitchens. The silence was deafening. Of every female chef kept quiet. If you don't see yourself as a woman and you think your success is because you're a good chef, that is fine. But when women are under attack, recognize who you are. You are a woman too. You may be the greatest chef in the whole world, but do not forget who you are, because you may not see yourself as a woman and you may see yourself as a superstar. But women working in your kitchen, women working in every kitchen will look at you and hear your silence and think this is how you deal with anger and bullying and abuse. You stay silent. I will not, because the best thing about me is I owe nothing to anyone. My path has been different. I'm on the fringes. I'm marginalized. And I will heckle because I have no fear. And even if I owed anyone an obligation to my success, I would still call it out. I don't want to go to my death crawling, having given up all my ethics and my self-respect for my success and my money. It's not a way to live. You need to call it out. You need the success to be that you stood up for others. My personal success means nothing to me.
It sounds like that the environment is that inclusive environment, that supportive environment is just so important for enabling women to join hospitality. And women are very good cooks, and many of them. And so it would be wonderful to see a hospitality that was able to welcome in and make those women feel welcome. That could open up a whole new a kind of avenue for from a hiring perspective of who you can actually employ and work with. And I think hospitality does face a challenge from a hiring perspective of making it seem like a welcoming space and one that people can enjoy working in. Yes, I mean, what are your views, Asma, on working? All of your team were former non-professionals as well. How have you managed to help them get over that difficulty of the transition you made from kind of supper club and home cooking into the professional environment? How do you make that process as smooth as possible?
We're still trying. We're still trying. There are days we get it wrong. Today we had, hiccups in the morning as well, trying to get it done. I think you've got to be kind to yourself. You understand this is quite difficult. And what is more important is that, maybe we are delayed and maybe we get things wrong and we're not perfect, but there is compassion and empathy. And it is difficult if you haven't had any kind of training. I mean, I'm a lawyer, so I understand that there are processes and procedure that you need to follow. You need to learn these things. You can't just turn up and say, I'm going to cook like I'm cooking for a dinner party when there are 200 people sitting in a restaurant. You can't do that. So there are things that you need to do. Get other people on board who can help you. But it is because all the women who are in my kitchen started from my home. We have done this entire journey together. There is added challenge now that we have this new restaurant where we actually haven't had a chance to run the restaurant. So we're going to again have to relearn the skills, reset, all the things that we thought were correct, and understand that, this is a continuous process, like in life, like in any other job. You need to keep changing and adapting, and we've got to do that. The fact that we don't have a professional culinary training sometimes is a problem. I'm not saying it's smooth sailing, but we have learned to kind of just push through, try our best, collaborate, work as a collective, and get through. And that has worked so far. There are days when it doesn't work, there are days when it works. It's not that it's the smoothest sailing thing, but I feel that we have a level of professionalism that we couldn't have imagined when we started. So, things get done, people do, follow instructions. And it is deeply humbling because not everybody in my team is educated. Not everyone went to school. Some of them have come from very abusive backgrounds, have been undermined hugely. The first thing we've done is that we have restored their souls, their self-belief. So they are confident, they understand that they matter, their lives matter, and their voice matters. Then I think that's half the battle won. Then, there are techniques. It's really just about following rules and things that, you set up. No one has to shout at everybody to get it done. Occasionally, I feel like shouting at everybody, but I don't, because I know I will be shouted back and told to go out, because no one's going to take my nonsense when I stream. But it's not that, we just have to be compassionate, just try and be understanding, It can be as challenging, I can just compare to, I have two boys, both of them completely, never fought with each other, never thing. But occasionally I get really pissed off with them. I want to scream and shout at them, but I don't, because it's a self control that we all have to have. And whether you're professional or not professional, I am not so impressed by those who went to culinary school. You hear stories about how much they scream and shout and throw knives and, hot items across the thing. How professional are they? We are compassionate and human, and we care about each other and we respect each other. And I think that, professionalism is overdone on this one. I think if you call yourself a professional, it's about self-control and humanity and dignity. And, we have recently got some new people in. I'm working with a GM who comes from Mars compared to me. Completely professional, 16 years, worked in hotels, he has a diary and writes down everything. I mean, I can die. I would never write down anything. And I forget half the things because I cannot get myself to write anything. But, we can get along and we can work. And I've learned from him. He's learned from me. It's not us or them. It's not a divided thing that, you're professionally trained, you're not professionally trained, and never the twain shall meet. That's not the case. We can work and we can collaborate. The main thing is you need to be human. You need to be kind and respectful. Whether you're professionally trained or not professionally trained is irrelevant after a while, because the main thing is whether you're a team player. And if your professional training teaches you that, It doesn't, unfortunately, in our culture. Hospitality schools, kids who come out of there all think they're going to be aggressive. They see shouty chefs on television screaming at people. This is how they think you become successful. That's not true. But the media and the imagery that they get is of aggressive, shouty men getting work done and being abusive, and they think this is how power works in a kitchen. This is what has damaged us the most. Not the fact that you're professional or not professional. Professional people who look at other professionals think you scream and shout, and that's how you get work done.
Mm. Do you think, Asma, that there's a kind of a huge pool of hidden talent that of people like your team who are currently being overlooked by hospitality at the moment? And what would be your advice to how do you go about spotting them from a hiring perspective?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. We struggle as well. And, we have a very big network of people and a reputation for hiring home cooks. We struggle to kind of get people in. I think the thing is that we need, one of the things that I intend to do is to set up a mentoring school in my restaurant when we finally open in summer, where I will be hoping to mentor women, not to teach them how to cook, but to teach them how to lead. I think this difference will not happen from bottom up. Change will not happen from below, because women there are too few women in kitchens. The revolution has to happen from the top. You have too few women who are in positions of power. You have too few women who are venture capitalists who invest in restaurants. Men invest in men. Invariably, big restaurants are run by investors. Investors will go and get a man in a suit because they will instinctively see self-selection, the guy is reliable. And what happens is that we are excluded from that table. What we all need to do is to pull a chair and sit down on the table. If you're not invited, sit down on the table and say, my voice counts. That is how we will have to change things from the top. So recruitment policy, because the point is that, we're not the Ritz. So we don't have an HR department. Most restaurants don't have anyone looking after HR. It's a very small unit where everyone knows each other. And, there's a whispering campaign. So it is very ad hoc how recruitment happens. I mean, I watched my GM doing a very professional way of recruiting. I was in awe. I had no idea this is how it's done. I don't know how it's done. So I was also guilty of recruiting informally, getting women in who knew somebody else or whatever. Problem is that, of course, for me, it's very, I'm getting more women in. But when you're a man in a position of strength, you go get the guy who you played football with, the bloke who's, you meet at the club and you play tennis with, or the guy you drink, in the pub with. This is a problem, that you don't meet people like us, who are just women who walk their dogs and make friends, chatting with friends, because, it's this, that this is the problem, that it is very, very, very ad hoc, hidden, not discussed. We really need a sea change. We need a change, and the change will not happen from below. The women's voices are not powerful enough. So, I'm, very lucky. So many women here. The men are a minority. We pay them the same as us. We promote them. We look after them. We don't bully our guys. So we have a handful of guys in our. So we look after them. We're very conscious. Oh, because we have a boy in our team. We've got to make sure that we look after him. But problem is that there are not enough of us. So this is why it's very important. This is why I agreed to do the session on a day when I'm supposed to be writing my book. But I wanted to talk because I hope that out of all of us, we need to collaborate. We need to have a very strong voice. We can only do this by being united, where it is not about your self-interest. For me, there are so many women in my kitchen, I could just keep quiet about it. Why am I speaking about it? Because I feel I have an onus. This is my duty. I have a responsibility. I'm in a position of privilege. I must call it out. When the bullying happens, I must speak out. I must make sure that, more and more women are hired. And I hope that other women see this and understand this, because it is not good enough that like often people tell me, oh, you're the first, British chef on Netflix. You broke the glass ceiling. Who wants to stand in a ceiling surrounded by bloody glass? You want to bring the whole place down, flatten all these edifices that are keeping us out, bring all these women on board, break down all the doors. because they're the doors that are being used to keep us out. We need to have a level playing field. Level playing field will only happen if we have enough women who shout loud enough, not shout down at people, but we shout for our rights, that this is our thing. If you just look back at history, and history is my first thing, the suffragettes and, jumping in front of horses and all crazy things that they've done. They did that, that you and I can go and vote. That for us, democracy is where we're equal. Actually, we need that kind of shaking in hospitality. It will not happen if the proverbial jumping in front of the horse doesn't happen by some of us. That some of us don't give up the idea that, possibly, I think I'm probably not very popular with almost all the restaurant chefs who are male. I have few friends, they're nice to me, but I don't have a network. I don't want their friendship. It'd be nice, I would like to be friends with them if they want to be friends with me, but they're not. I don't need their approval. I don't need their endorsement. I don't need anything. I want to know that I liberated women, that women in kitchens can stand up tall and live without fear. They know that, if they have a problem, there's a process, there's a procedure. They will believe them. They will not just say, suck it up. I have seen girls coming to me who have shown me, taken down their shirt and showed me bruises of, when they were hit. They sat and cried in my kitchen, and they went back to that same kitchen. And I said, tell someone. They said, no, because, then no one's going to hire me. They're going to see me as a troublemaker. This is today. I come from the East, where this is done to women all the time. Women can't do this, women can't do that. We have this huge, big, fat boulder that's put on our head, which is shame. Women bring shame to the family. Keep quiet so that you bring shame. Why is this happening here in hospitality? Why are women keeping silent? It is deeply worrying. They're worried about the fact that everyone is going to ridicule them. And they feel shame for having said that, someone was aggressive, someone put me into the, walk-in freezer, someone touched me, someone hit me. And you think that, how we are allowing this to happen. We are the dinosaurs of the industry. Even the head of Uber or whichever company where their shareholders has to resign when it is proved that he has been violent, made misogynic comments. Unless you're Donald Trump, then you get away with it, but not for long. But most men in positions of power, when they make comments that are derogatory to women, are challenged. How many male chefs are challenged? Why is this happening? So for all of you who are here, at least try to be that friend of the person who's being oppressed. Try and find avenues, associations, find routes to be that support for a woman, because we need this. We need this so desperately. A lot of my time and energy and effort goes into trying to support women. This drains me. Sometimes it's suffocating that I'm doing this. But I will not stop. I will not stop, because I need to know I made a change. I need to know I left a legacy. Long after I'm gone, I want people to know there was an all-female restaurant run by home cooks in the heart of Covent Garden in a grade 2 listed building. And they thrived. They were victorious. I'm not doing this for the power and the kind of glory for me. I need to do this for the generation of women coming after me. I want to clear their paths. I want them to know you can be what you want to be. Bring down the whole building if you are blocked. We need to be that powerful that you know you can do it, and you can only do it as a collective. Alone, you're nothing.
What are the kind of ways, Asma, you think hospitality can encourage more women and more people who aren't professional? It's difficult for people who haven't trained to think that they can actually go into hospitality. How would you suggest kind of helping them to think that that is an opportunity for them? Are there ways of doing that?
Well, the thing is that, there's some talk of a college of food for London, where you have different kinds of courses, which is allowing women with, which have childcare or, have other jobs or do other things to dip into courses, to train, because not everybody can afford to go to culinary school, nor can everybody afford to go through this a brutal process. You're starting at the very bottom and going up. This crazy French brigade system where you rise through the ranks. By the time, women, anyone who's decent, once they keep getting crushed and keep getting crushed, at some point leave. Because you never see them beyond middle range in the kitchen in position of power. Where have they all gone? The women are all gone. No one even seems to talk about them, but they tick the boxes. Oh, yes, yes. I asked very casually some of the male chefs who have Michelin stars, tell me the gender split in your restaurant. They said, oh, we have 3 women. I said, what is that salary base? Where are they? Not one of them got back to me. And interestingly, because why would they? Because I know where they are. I know where those women are. They're the pretty face that they will hire in the reception. But, that's it. Where the fire is hot in the kitchen, where the power is, where they can protect others, women are not there. So I think that, we need to discuss this more, find ways. I don't have solutions. I have lots of ideas, but, they might not be the best idea. Just because I did it with mine may not be that my route will work. It's a very unique setup what I had. We need to discuss this with other women. We need to just, brainstorm, find a way in which, women who cook day in and day out, believe me, this whole women who've all come in, they have life experience. They multitask. You don't need to shout orders at them. They have very ungrateful people they've served, their kids and partners, where you need to get the food out, your kids are like, driving you crazy. So they have come through that. So they have also been through a trial of fire. So they are not professional, but they have been through this kind of anxiety of timing food to get the groceries right, to make sure everything is done so that you don't start cooking unless all your, they've done this. We are cooking. Food is made by women all the time in a different environment. The requirements are the same. You need to have all the ingredients there. You need to get ready on time. You need to plate it. You need to serve it. Then you wash the plate. It's not rocket science. It's the same thing. It's made to feel like we don't belong. This is the biggest problem. The rhetoric and the narrative is a problem. We need to change that, but we also need to get investment. We need women to invest in women. We also need to find other ways of investment coming in for training of women. Because it is not, they can't just go in. They're not a 16 or 17-year-old going into culinary school. They're 35-year-old. This is a second career in their lives. We should really take advantage of the fact they've been an accountant before, they've been a teacher before. They have skills, which actually you need in a kitchen. You need an organized person. You need someone who's done X, Y, and Z. It's not a disadvantage that this is your second career. But again, women after their 40s, like, oh, this is the end of your life. You have no value. And in my culture, too often, and in fact, they say it quite often, that, after women have had their kids, of course, because we're patriarchal, having the kid is very important. After they've had their kids in their 40s, women no longer are productive in some ways. We're not in the bloody jungle. And this whole idea that this is seen as the autumn of our lives, as if this is all now, everything is complete. You have nothing to give in your 40s and 50s. I tell my women in my kitchen, this is the spring of your life. Set the world on fire. Because, for those who might know cricket or not know cricket, I always tell them, and my entire team know cricket really well. This is our second innings. None of us are going to get a chance to bat again. This is our final innings. We hit every ball out of the park. Because this is not about you winning and making a century. Your entire team needs to win. Everyone needs to bat in the same way. You hit it so hard. You win every time. This is the difference between women who are older and younger. We have been through life. We have failed so many times. We have learned to rise again. These are the skills I want. I want women who are resilient, who can come in and bring strength. All my failures have been in private. None of you knew me then.
Asma, you still there? Oh, hopefully we'll have Asma coming back in just a second. I think you're back, Asma. It's good to see. I was just about to say, if anyone has questions, please do put them in the chat, and we'll get to them shortly. You mentioned about the London College of Food and some of the short courses, and making it more accessible to make that switch as a second career. Do you think that restaurants could potentially offer mini cooking classes as almost part of a kind of hiring process for attracting cooks like these?
Yeah, I mean, I did this in my old restaurant in Soho. Every Sunday, I gave my restaurant for free to home cooks. So they played restaurant. No, when we were kids, we played shop, and we had this little plastic cash register, and we cooked and we did fake tea parties, torturing our parents by making them drink water, and so the thing is that, yes, we should do it. We should definitely open up the doors. It is, of course, complicated right now because of COVID, but restaurants don't do this. I've always done this. I've always brought interns in. I've given my restaurant to home cooks. I have been their waitress so that I could help serve and support them. And some of them have gone on to open restaurants. Shambal Shoik, she's in, near Finsbury Park. Sorry, she's on Holloway Road. She has a Malaysian restaurant, did, pop-ups in my place. And, you have quite a few women who've gone on to do catering and, open restaurants, get confident by practicing in my restaurant. It is really about the desire. If everybody in hospitality really intended to make this a level playing field and decide not to disregard this whole, group of women who are hugely talented, you're going to keep digging in that little space, in that little pond where people who look like you, who you think are correct, you're going to keep using that space. And interestingly, because of Brexit and more dramatically because of COVID, 700,000 people left London. Most of them are in hospitality. Down, this is our great opportunity. Let's, please go in. Don't think we're struggling to recruit in front of house. There's been an exodus of people. So if you are based in this country, you are here, go to restaurants, be brave. Believe me, they're all struggling to find people. And this is because so many people who came from Europe left around Brexit, but then they left during this long lockdown. They went off and they haven't come back. So the usual suspects that people recruit are gone. So take your chances, go in there. You've got to believe, you've got to visualize yourself in that kitchen. No one will hire you if you don't have that inner confidence that I belong there. You've got to imagine yourself there. You've got to imagine yourself as a chef. And then, of course, then you exude that confidence that someone will feel, yeah, I can take her. She seems like she really wants to do it. Problem is that you don't have too many women who you can look up to, as role models, who have been successful, have used the unconventional route. And, I hope that, some of you who don't know who I am, please, see interviews of me. There are other women as well, who are there. There's a very inspirational chef from South Africa who is the sous chef at Holborn Dining Room, Knox. She's from South Africa, never seen a pie in her life. Now she makes the most amazing pies in the pie room. She's the boss there. She runs an all-female team now. There's one guy, we have a token guy there in that room. There are many, women with very dynamic women who are doing interesting stuff. So, go look for their stories, go talk to them. You'll be surprised. Most women are very happy to talk to other people. I know it's always daunting, and I was terrified writing to anyone who I thought was famous or, important. But, most people will be happy to write back to you, to meet you, to talk to you. Take the opportunity to talk to other people.
What do you think, Asma, in terms of this, the team that you have and how they got started? I know that they probably would have spoken to you. Did you know them already, or were they friends, or?
Yeah, I knew them. I knew them before I started a supper club because they were nannies in the school that my kid went to. So I made friends with them. So yes, my story is a bit unconventional. I knew them, and then I told them I'm doing a supper club. Do you want to come? They came to eat. They didn't come to help me initially. They were useless. I sat and ate everything up that I was making. Half my cucumbers prepped, everything. So you guys met. I didn't call you to kind of eat everything up, but this is, part of our culture. You sit and eat as you cook. But so yes, I was friends with them, and then that we slowly kind of moved forward into supper clubs and whatever. It is not easy to connect with other women, but I think that in this world, in the digital world, it is very easy to set up, forums where women can connect to each other, chat to each other. We're doing this right now. It's very easy, and it fits in with people's lifestyle. And the main thing is we need to change your inner soul. Too many women feel they don't belong because we've been made to feel we do not belong in the kitchen. This is a real battle. It's a battle of mind and hearts. We need to change that, switch that over, make women believe that they belong where they do, that they belong in professions, and that they don't see other people like them. When I started supper clubs, if you looked at the media, food media, you never saw anyone like me. No one was, Muslim, accented, middle-aged, ethnic, from different ethnicity. Hardly anybody. That didn't put me off. I was determined to do it because I love cooking. So it's hard when you don't see that many people who look like you, who are at your age, have your story. Maybe you were some kind of yoga teacher before and now want to cook. We should be able to know that, the fact that you were a yoga teacher is something that is valued, because then you can twist your back and go and pull down that pot that no one else can. So there's always, don't see this as, all your life experience, everything you've done, you will use it. We use it every day. We're just not conscious of it. Just because someone says, oh, you've never done professional cooking, whack them on the head. Of course, you've cooked all your life. What is the difference between professional cooking and not professional? It's really about wanting to learn, and, obviously you can't come in and become head chef, but you can learn and you can train and you make mistakes, and then, you make less mistakes. I think just we need to be more compassionate and kind to people. We're a kind of we judge people too quickly. We categorize people, we put them in boxes, we label people. This is a strange time to be growing up. Social media does this as well to people. You see yourselves in a certain way because others see you that way. Inside you, if there's a cook waiting to come out, please come out. Don't wait. Every day you live less, okay? You have one day less to live. So if you really want to do something, you should do it now. Be brave, be brave. The main thing is courage. If you have courage, you will be successful. That's the only thing you require. You don't need this kind of professional training, whatever. The first thing you need is courage.
Are there particular skills that the team that you've had have brought from their past that you've found have come really in handy? Like you mentioned the yoga kind of flexibility, and you talked about accounting before. Are there any skills that you found people have brought that you'd actually actively look for in the future for your hiring?
Yes, I think that all of us learn to cook in a kind of without written instructions, because for some of them they're not educated. So this non-verbal communication, I look for people who can pick up things that are happening. There's anticipation, there is preparation. This is very helpful in our kitchen, where no one is really communicating that well in a kitchen, because the problem is that we never did. Because we cooked with mothers and grandmothers. If you talked, they gave you one back and told you, go away, don't talk. So there's not that much communication. This can be a disadvantage sometimes because people don't tell you that this thing is running out. But there's an advantage in the fact that people anticipate what's happening next because they're visually looking at each other. So this is the strength in our kitchen because of the unprofessional background from these women and the fact that they cooked at home with people who were not giving instructions. I'm very bad at giving instructions. I mean, if anyone who has worked with me will understand that, I am absolutely like the worst person because my mind is not structured in that way that I can give clear instructions. But it's okay. I have other strengths. I cannot have, I can't be everything. I cannot be a superstar. So there's some things that I can't do. But for me, it's easy that these women don't require instructions. They should be grateful that I'm not giving them instructions because I'm so bad at it. So it's always you always find, a way to settle down and work. So there are, things that you think are a disadvantage may not be a disadvantage.
Hmm. I do think that having a kind of collaborative working environment makes such a big difference as well. Where people, you talked earlier about kind of the team playing aspect of how it works in kitchens, or not in many of them. And I think it does make a huge difference if you're actually collaborating, able to see each other's strengths. And potentially weaknesses as well, so you know how to complement each other, and appreciate, that diversity, I guess, of skills makes such big difference, and makes it much more of a kind of positive working environment to be in as well. um,
Yes.
what do you think, Asma, in terms of the things that actually made your team change from what they were doing before? Why do you think they decided to give up, that job in accounting, or whatever it was they were doing before, and decide to switch to being a chef? Because there's quite a big change, really.
I saw a flash in the chat where someone was asking about confidence, and I think that it comes to that. When you feel undervalued, you feel sidelined and neglected.
Mm,
The main thing is, it's not easy to make that switch to suddenly feeling confident. There's a lot of mental health, you know, backup, especially after pandemic, that a lot of us need, where we need to feel again complete, because all of us have this kind of hollow feeling, uncertainty, fears, having lost, some sadly have lost loved ones, lost opportunities. This kind of, it's almost like a bereavement. All of us are grieving in some ways of losing things. It saps out your confidence. It is not easy, but to change, transform from where you were. So for me, most of my team were cleaners in hospitals, or nannies, and they switched to becoming chefs. It is about the day when you realize that, my hands, what I cook has a value. But you do need someone else to tell you this. You need someone else to tell you this, because when you are in this very dark space and you feel undervalued, you feel underconfident, you don't hear that other person telling you, you're beautiful, you're amazing, I love what you made, I love your voice, you made me feel happy. So the one thing that we can all do is, even if we are feeling very low, is be that confident booster to someone else. Stand by someone else and give them that confidence, because it will always come back to you. I think this is very hard. Because we are sealed so run down, we are hesitant to praise and applaud and be the cheerleader for other women. It's life changing for them. So if at the moment you are struggling, you lift by rising others.
mm,
Try it. This is the one thing that makes a difference to your confidence. When you see that person confident, you see that transformation happening to someone else. You know you played a role. Then you know you can heal yourself. It is a mind game. You need to tell yourself, I will overcome and I will prevail. It's really important. You got to pull yourself from within, because nobody else can do that for you. Because that voice inside, only you can hear.
it's almost as if restaurants, if they were to just offer the space to women in the community, the local community, as a place to just come and enjoy cooking and meeting other people. And it doesn't have to be a pressurized environment, because the thing is, if it's so hard to discover people like that if they're already not confident
Yeah.
about their cooking. So it's almost like you need to offer an environment where they don't have to know anything; they just come, and then your existing chefs, for example, are on hand to kind of boost their confidence and tell them how wonderful it is, and that's then something that can develop further into a conversation about whether they might like to join, or but you need to provide that space in the first place, otherwise you'll never find them.
Yeah, the thing is that hospitality is not concerned. They're
Mm,
not concerned. They don't think this is their, They don't have a duty of care to women.
Mm.
Otherwise, how is it that till now nothing is being done? If we really mattered, wherever there is women are underrepresented, change has happened. Change has happened, discussions have happened. There was the time when, you didn't have female doctors, you didn't have female lawyers. It's hard for us to imagine that there was a time when, medical school didn't take women. It's not that far away that this happened. Women getting the vote is still relatively recent. So change can happen. We need to make that change. We need to change the whole narrative and the rhetoric of what is happening with women. This is the only thing that will happen. Don't expect men in their ivory towers, the powerful male chefs, the investors with their suitcase full of money, to care about people like us. They don't, because they don't think our lives matter. And our lives matter. And taking this has to be political. It has to be political. You fight this like a political campaign about rights. All this time, hospitality and women in hospitality have not done this. I do it every day. I see this as about politics. It's about power. It's about who decides what. For me, this is, I claim this earth on which I walk, this space, this restaurant. I own it. And I will now use this to campaign for others, so they are also in the same position. Politics matters. This is about power. We need to get power to ourselves. And every time women have tried to get power, it's a struggle. It's not going to be easy, but change happens. You just need to look at history, where change happened and women got back power and authority. They challenged the system. At the point that we are right now, this is the time which I would describe as a time for revolution. This is the time when you challenge those in authority. You become political and you band together. This is the only way the change will happen.
Yes, I would echo Jane's comments in the chat about being such an uplifting session. I think it's that kind of idea of confidence and just believing in yourself is so important, and believing in your own home cooking and the value of that is such an important message. And I think also what has been echoed through some of the other sessions is a lot about creating an inclusive environment which encourages diversity of thought and creativity, just wonderful to hear how much you've done and where you've come from, Asma. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and please do try. You are powerful. You can make a difference to other people's lives. Thank you very much. Thank you. Enjoy all the other sessions. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.